Shalom, shalom, peace be with you, peace be upon you. We are the Ministry of the Real Truth, and someone has kindly slipped us a great comment in our channel comments and mentions. So we thought we'd appreciate it and do a video on it. It's actually quite a good comment. We're interested in what they have to say, what they had to say. That a group of Jews are directly mentioned in the Samaritan Book of Asatir. And after the death of Abraham, Ishmael reigned 27 years, and all the children of Nebaioth ruled for 1 year in the lifetime of Ishmael, and for 30 years after his death, from the river of Egypt to the river Euphrates, the ancient Kemet to the river Euphrates, and they built Mecca. The Asatir, the Samaritan Book of the Secret of Moses, Gaster, Moses, 1927, 8, page 262, maybe it's volume 8, page 262. That is the descendants of Ishmael began to rule his lifetime, ruled during his lifetime. They built the city of Makkah. In that book, the famous Jewish historian Josephus, 37 AD to 100 AD, is quoted as saying, well, Josephus, deemed by many top scholars such as Bati Uman, etc., not really that reliable, his writings, etc., because it appears to be Josephus writing, and then there's a different style, and they seem to think that someone else has added to it. It's a person with a different style, not the same as Josephus. He had a different style, right? So yeah, they're a bit wary of that, saying that makes them not that reliable. But that's their opinion, that's their perspective, right? The understanding of it through their own personal research. In that book, the famous Jewish historian Josephus, 37 AD to 100 AD, is quoted as saying, don't forget, he was adopted into the Roman Flavian family. So obviously he became Romanized. Josephus, 1:12:3-221. These inhabited all the countries from Euphrates to the Red Sea, the Sea of Reeds, maybe, and called it Nabateen. Genesis 25:18. Is that Palmyra or Palestinian Targum? And they dwelled from Hindakia, Indian Ocean, to Pelusa, which is before Egypt, as thou goest to Atur, Assyria, in Kibra chapter 83. Many countries are enumerated over which Ishmael ruled. Well, he built Mecca. Okay, so thinking, how do we respond to that? Okay, we go check out the information. So, who's the author of this, apparently? The Astir Gaster Moses. Okay, and we have it here. Got hold of it here. Free online. No copyright problems there. We shouldn't gather a copyright claim or an infringement or anything like that. And it's by Moses Gaster, and who was he? Born 17 September 1856, died 5th March 1939, was a Romanian, later British scholar. A person who is a researcher or has expertise in an academic discipline. A scholar can also be an academic who works as a professor, teacher, or researcher at a university. An academic usually holds an advanced degree, etc., etc., or a PhD, maybe. The Hakam of the Spanish, what's the Hakam? Never heard of that. A term in Hakam is a term in Judaism meaning a wise or skillful man. It often refers to someone who is a great Torah scholar. Is that when, apparently to the Jews, like, you can tell this really wise man who his hair is receding, he's got this massive receding hairline or something like that, that shows that wisdom or something like that. We're not too sure, but that's just what we read. Not too sure if that's the same person. Yeah, the sign of a wise man is that hair starts receding in the Jewish population, right? Okay, so Hacham is a term in Judaism meaning a wise or skillful man. It often refers to someone who is a great Torah scholar. It can also refer to any cultured and learned person. He who says a wise thing is called a Hacham, even if he be not a Jew. Okay, pretty enough. Okay, life in Romania. Gaster was born in Bucharest into a renowned Jewish Austrian family, which had settled in Wallachia at the beginning of the 19th century. He was the eldest son of Chevalier Abraham Emanuel Gaster, who was the consul of the Netherlands in Bucharest, and the grandson of Asriel Gaster, a prosperous merchant and community leader. His mother, Penina Judith Rubinstein, came from a rabbinical dynasty which included Rabbi Levi Isaac ben Meir.
Yeah.
After having taken a degree in his native city, etc., etc., he went to Leipzig, which is probably in Germany, or was it Austria? A German state of Saxony, where he received a degree of PhD in 1878, and then to the Jewish Seminary in Breslau, the Jewish Theological Seminary in Breslau, where he gained the Hatarat Hora'at rabbinical diploma in 1881. His history of Romanian popular literature was published in Bucharest in 1883. He was lecturer on the Romanian language and literature at the University of Bucharest, 1881 to 85, Inspector General of Schools, and so forth. He also lectured on the Romanian Apocrypha, the whole of which he had discovered in manuscript. Gaster was a central figure of Chabad Zion in Romania, and played a central role in the 1882 establishment by Jews from Moine-Esti, is that how you say it? City in Bacău County, Western Moldavia, Romania, with a population of 21,787 as of 2011. Its name is derived from the Romanian language word moina, might be moina, not really sure how to say that, which means fallow or light rain. Moine-Esti once had a large Jewish community, etc., etc. We did have chats with a Romanian lady at a former job, but we didn't really get into the religious side of it. She just said that something about it originally being Roma, and there was these gypsies there, and then in came these Indians from India, obviously pretending that they were gypsies, they were original gypsies and all this sort of stuff. It's just basically Rome. The Romans had moved somewhere else, right? Possibly, and created this country called Romania or Roma, right? That's as far as we know. Life in England goes on about that. Rising in worldwide Jewish affairs, he became a vice president of the first Zionist Congress in Israel, in Basel, wherever that is. Zionist organisation held in Basel on August 29 to 31, 1897. 208 delegates and 26 press correspondents attended the event. It was convened and chaired by Theodor Herzl, the founder of, is that the guy who founded the State of Israel? He talked to the British, who were losing in World War One, getting defeated by the Germans. They're overpowering them, they're too strong. And he says, maybe these generals or whatever, these heads of this British military said, looks like we're going to lose to them, so we might just surrender. But he said, no, I've got a solution. So these people said, what's that? He says, well, I'll tell you the solution to the problem. You have to promise me that you'll give me what I want, basically. And they said, what's that? And he says, we want a state for the Jewish people to return to. We want our own state, i.e. State of Israel. So he says, okay, we'll promise you that if you deliver, right? He said, what's the solution? He says, bring the Americans into the war. So they did. And the Americans, obviously a force, helped defeat the Germans. And then they pushed for reparation, blaming the Germans for the war, etc., etc. When the French, etc., had broken Versailles treatment and whatever pertains to that actual history involving that. The French came in and started getting tax money, reparation money, Germans had to pay reparation money for that, this and that, and all that sort of stuff. Okay, so yeah, it's probably that guy, Theodore Herzl. Pretty sure it's that same guy. So they end up getting the estate. Well, I think he demanded it or requested it in 1917, early 1980 or something, before World War One was ending, and he didn't really get it. They didn't really get it until like 1947, 1948. Winston Churchill says, the Jews should have a state that they can all return to because they're scattered all over the planet, right? And it didn't really happen until after World War II, 47, 48, something like that. And then they had this 6-day war, apparently. I'm not too sure if that was actually a 100-day war. No, that's a different thing. Yeah. They had a 6-day war or something. And they had superior weaponry, tanks, etc., and they defeated the Palestinians. And later they keep moving into their territory, slowly pushing them out, right? And so forth. Okay, so 1887 he was appointed Cham of the Spanish and Portuguese congregation in London, in which capacity he presided over the bicentenary of Bevis Mark Synagogue. He was invited to give the Ilchester lectures, and there's heaps more information on him here. Rising in World War Jewish affairs, he became a vice president. We already read that. Gaster's residence, Mispah 193, etc., etc. In London, served as a venue for early talks between prominent Zionists and the Foreign Office in 1917. The first draft of the Balfour Declaration was written at the Gaster home on 7 February 1917 in the presence of Chaim Weizmann, Nahum Sokolow, Baron Rothschild, the Rothschilds, Sir Mark Sykes and Herbert Samuel. Other visitors to Gaster home included Winston Churchill, Vladimir Lenin and Sigmund Freud. Psychiatrist, right? Okay. Sigmund Freud. Wonder what he added to that. Okay. Churchill. The Balfour Declaration. What was that? Was a public statement issued by the British government in 1917 during the First World War, announcing its support for the establishment of a national home for Jewish people in Palestine, then an Ottoman region. Okay, it's probably Mohammedan or Islamic, Muslim. Okay, so they wouldn't have been too happy with that. Apparently, Hitler wanted to ship or transport all the Jews out of Germany, all the German Jews, etc., to Palestine and make them work there for their war effort, but they didn't have to transport something like that, so it didn't happen. So somebody else suggested this final solution, etc., etc., happened after that. Okay, so here's a collector of manuscripts. Great collector of manuscripts, having over 2,000 mainly Hebrew, Samaritan and Slavonic manuscripts. At the outbreak of the Second World War, his collection was moved for safekeeping to cellars in the centre of London. However, water used to quench London fires, because it continually bombed right during the war, saturated a large part of the collection, which made some of the items illegible in whole or in part. Fortunately, many of them had been previously transliterated into Hebrew typescript. The collection, comprising of over 10,000 fragments in Hebrew and Judeo-Arabic from the Cairo Geniza, the Geniza of the Ben Ezra Synagogue in Old Cairo, capital of Egypt and the city-state Cairo Governorate. Some 350 Hebrew codices and scrolls, including prayer books of many Jewish communities, apocryphal writings, commentaries, treatises, letters, marriage contracts, Piyutim, whatever that is, Piyut or Piyut is a Jewish liturgical poem, etc., etc., and 13 scrolls of the law, some 350 Samaritan astronomical codices, detailed census, list of the Samaritans, and list of manuscripts in their possession, and almost 1,500 uncatalogued Arabic fragments on paper from the synagogue of Ben Ezra, and so forth. He had a private life. He invested Gaster's major work, in which he invested 10 years of his life, was a Romanian Christomathy, whatever that is. Christomathy? Collection of selected literary passages, a selection of literary passages from a foreign language assembled for studying the language, or a text in various languages, used especially as an aid in learning a subject. And glossary covering the period from the dawn of Romanian literature down to 1830. Gaster also wrote various textbooks for the Jewish community of Romania. The history of the Jews in Romania concerns the Jews both of Romania and of Romanian origins, from the first mention of what is present-day Romanian territory. Minimal until the 18th century, the size of the Jewish population increased, etc., etc. He made a Romanian translation of the Siddur, a Jewish prayer book containing a set order of daily prayers. The word Siddur comes from the Hebrew root meaning order, and compiled a short Hebrew Bible history. The Hebrew Bible, or Tanakh, also known in Hebrew as Mikra, is the canonical collection of Hebrew scriptures, including the Torah, the Nevi'im. Was it Nevi'im? Looks like, can't really see that. It's like Nevi'im. And the Ketuvim. Different branches of Judaism and Samaritanism have maintained differences. Okay. He believed in the scientific study of folklore and did not sympathise with those believing that preserving folklore should mostly serve a political and nationalist purpose. His study of Romanian folklore led Gaster to conclusions at odds with those shared by most scholars of his time, who found there traces of pre-Christian beliefs. Gaster argued that nothing found in Romanian folklore predated Christianity, and that what appeared as pre-Christian to other scholars in fact derived from a Christian heresy, Bogomilism. Bogomilism. You heard that one? It was a Christian neo-Gnostic or new Gnostic, or more modern Gnostic or dualistic sect founded in the First Bulgarian Empire by the priest Bogomil during the reign of Tsar Peter I in the 10th century. Wasn't he Russian? It most probably arose in the region of Kutmikivitsa, today part of the region of, is it Macedonia or Macedor? It's like Macedonia. Not very sure. Bogomilism. Okay. List of major works as follows: the Asatir, the Samaritan Book of the Secrets of Moses, 1927, which we're going to have a look at. Biographies of Gaster, references, bibliography, etc. Okay. So we're going to have a look at that book. We've got some more information here on him. Gaster, Moses Gaster. Probably a bit more reliable than Wikipedia. Gaster joined the Zionist movement at its very beginning and was the vice president of the 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 7th Zionist Congresses. He was also an active member of Havivet Sion and of the Anglo-Jewish Association, and was the founder and chairman of the Anglo-Zionist Federation. Dedicated to cultural Zionism and unwilling to accept any territorial compromise, Gaster was involved in negotiations with British authorities over the fate of the Jewish homeland in Palestine. The first draft of the Balfour Declaration was written at his residence in London on 7 February 1917, in the presence of Chaim Weizmann, Nahum Sokolow, James de Rothschild, Mark Sykes and Herbert Samuel. And more information on him, suggested reading, and we have a couple more here. Gaster Moses, basically the same information, maybe a little bit different, probably more reliable than Wikipedia, because we have come across people that said or a celebrity, the guy from Creed, they said this and that, and he says no, that's partly true or it's not true. Okay. There are problems with Wikipedia, right? Getting the information wrong, someone putting it up there, and the information is wrong or total lies. Okay. We have the Pentateuch book here. We could buy for an hour. Okay, we're not going to do that. Okay, at the moment, we were thinking about it, but it's like, no, it's not really that relative to it. So we're going to go back to Asatir and read that actual book that we found online. The Samaritan Book of the Secrets of Moses, together with the Petron or Samaritan Commentary and the Samaritan Story of the Death of Moses, published for the first time with introduction, translation and notes by Moses Gaster, PhD. We just remembered, where are we? Here we go. Comments and mentions that here, this is the Nabateans. Okay, these Nabateans weren't Arabs. Okay, in the sense, definition of Arab, it means somebody who wanders desert regions, pitches tents, probably raises sheep or goats or animals like that, herds, etc. Okay, it's not specifically saying they were Muslims. Okay, Mohammedans. And it's got here Genesis 25:18, Palestinian Targum, and they dwelled from Hindukia, Indian Ocean, to Pelusa, etc. And then they went to Assyria. This is Greek, so this must be in another language, Jewish or something, Hebrew or something, because it's actually Ashur. Okay, in the Assyrian or the Syrian, A-S-H-U-R, but in the Greek it's Ashur, Assur, A-S-S-U-R. Okay, here's the Greek Latin loan word in prefix, indicating that this geographical region was in the possession of certain people that were there. Okay, i.e. these Ashurs, these Ashurites, these Assyrians. In Kibra chapter 83, many countries are enumerated of which Ishmael ruled. So what are they trying to say here? They dwelled from Indian Ocean to Pelusium, which is before Egypt, as it goes to Ashur on the way to Assyria, etc., etc. That's what it sounds like. These Nabateans, the Tammuz, I'm pretty sure that's the name of it, the Tammuz, they are the grandparent language of the Arabic. It's the grandchild language of the Nabatean, apparently. You can look online, you'll find it at Wikipedia, but you've got to figure out if that's actually fact, because as we said, Wikipedia can be wrong. But that's what we came across through the help of somebody else, right? And the Aramaic, Hebrew and Syriac are the parent languages of that Arabic. There is no such thing as Arabia or Arabic, because they have the Greek Latin loan word ia and ik on the end of them. So these Greeks went to those areas and says, oh, okay, this is a geographical location, you people are dwelling there, you're possessing that land, okay, so we'll name it Arabia. Okay, and you're speaking a certain language, desert language or whatever. So say like Aramaic, for example, right? They were speaking the language of Aram, their forefather. So they're saying, well, where did that language originate from? They said, oh, from our forefather Aram. It's in Genesis, etc. like that, right? So they add on the end of it ik in prefix, right? Or in suffix, whatever it actually is. And because sometimes we forget, right? And they basically were saying, well, you have this language, you possess this language. So when they went back to their lands, the people might have said, okay, so where'd you go? Oh, we went to this geographical region there. Oh, and what did you find there? Oh, a bunch of people that spoke a certain language. What language was that? The language of their forefather Aram, right? I.e. Aramaic. Okay. Okay. And where was that? Oh, in this geographical region. They were possessing it. Desert regions, etc. So obviously they're nomads, they're wanderers through this desert region. They pitch tents, they raise animals, all this sort of stuff. So nomadic Arab desert wanderers, so we call them Arabic. So it's not specifically saying Mohammedans or Muslims that occupy it today, right? Because not all Arabs are Muslims, we have heard, right? There's a lot of them that are Muslims, but not all of them are Muslims. Okay? So this Ishmael he's speaking of is a half-breed son, where Abraham was told by Sarai, one who mocks, to get with her bondservant, okay, her bondsmaid, she would give him a child because he was desperate to have a child. He needed an heir, a head of the family, right? So he goes into the tent, gets with her, she brings him a child, and then Sarai became serious. She was mocking her and all that stuff, and Hagar the Egyptian, because that's where she was from. When the Israelites come out of Egypt, they took Egyptians with them, but they had to go through all the rituals, they couldn't dwell in that settlement unless they did certain things like circumcision, etc., etc., because it was a covenant practice, a right of these Israelites, right? But God commanded, and the command says, you got to do it for your own people, but you also got to do these foreigners who are dwelling in your encampment, because if they don't, well, off they go, right? If they want to be part of it, remain in it, they have to get the old cut, burning, right? Get the old circumcision. It's basically a ticket to be in that elite group, right? Yeah, so these Nabateans were Nabateans. They were the parent language of the Aramaic, Hebrew, Syriac, and this Egyptian, Arabic, as in Mohammedans, Muslims, etc., was the grandchild of that Nabatean language, the Damuz. Yeah. We can refer a video where a certain person of ancient Egypt or Kemetic affiliation, influence, explains it to you. It's called The Rise of the Origins of Islam, something about the Moors, and it points out, and a Assyriologist, can't remember his name, but Jorgensen or something like that, he was really, really good at in his day. He was one of the top ones, Assyriologist, and he gives a slideshow demonstration of that fact, right? And it shows you Wikipedia and the Nabateans and being the grandparent language of the Arabic and all that sort of stuff. We could provide it, but we've got to find it, so we'll probably leave the link to it so you can watch it underneath the this video. Okay, so we're digressing here, so I'm going back to this book, the Asatir. Yeah. Again, the Asatir, the Samaritan Book of the Secret of Moses, the Secrets of Moses, together with the Petron of Samaritan Commentary and the Samaritan Story of the Death of Moses, published for the first time with introduction, translation and notes by Moses Gaster, who had a PhD. Published by the Royal Asiatic Society in 1927. Okay, and this author is dedicated to his father and his mother-in-law. Preface. A preface to a little book with a voluminous introduction of some hundreds of pages seems a superfluous luxury. The author believed, however, that such an introduction is intended to give to a superficial reader a brief indication of what he may expect to find in the book. The scholar requires none of it. In order, therefore, to satisfy such a reader, the author would tell him briefly that he was publishing here for the first time a Samaritan collection of biblical legends, a parallel to the Jewish Midrash and to the pseudepigraphic, which means they can pinpoint the date that it was written, but they can't pinpoint who the actual author was. The author claims for the Secrets of Moses that it is the oldest book in existence of this kind of literature, or this type of literature, right? It's not the oldest book in the world, right? And he puts the date of its compilation to be about the middle or end of the 3rd century BCE, before the Common Era. In the introduction, the reader will see how he has reached a conclusion as startling to himself as probably it will be to the reader who will take this book for the first time into his hands. Yeah, we've never heard of that. That's why we're appreciating that someone brought it to our attention. So we're doing our best to explain it by reviewing it. It was very slow and upward work, and the author had to cover a wide field, leaving no document unexamined, which might help to throw light on the date and origin of this book. The author had searched through the entire pseudo-epigraphic literature in whatever language it may have been preserved, and he worked his way up to the Hellenistic literature, to the Sibylline Oracle, and Eupolemos. Josephus had attracted him quite especially, and he believed he had been able to put a new complexion on the character and sources of his antiquities. The Palestinian Targum had come under minute examination, and in connection with it all the Jewish Midrashim. The Sibylline oracles had been traced down to the latest development in the Tibetan, and the medieval oracles down to Matthew or Paris, and even to Slavonic and Romanian texts. In his re-examination of the pseudepigraphic literature, it's considered pseudo, not that it's fake or anything like that, but that, may not necessarily be true, etc., etc. This is according to top theologians like Dr. Bart Ehrman and others, right, that define these lost books, these Gnostic books, etc., as pseudepigrapha. So a lot of these books weren't included in the canon. They weren't in the Bible, put in the Bible, right? Today's Bible, or the ancient Bible. In his re-examination of the pseudepigraphic literature, he had arrived at conclusions which differ widely from those accepted today. He drew attention to affinities. He's drawn attention to affinities with Mandaean traditions, and he endeavoured to give as literal a translation as possible. So a near translation in the English as possible of a text so old and unfortunately so corrupt that even the joint wisdom of the Samaritans of today has been unable to solve many of the problems raised by it. So somewhere along the way it was corrupted, by the sounds of it. A commentary prepared by them has also been added, which exemplifies the exact state of scholarship among the Samaritans of the last few centuries. Brief, but the author believes sufficiently ample references to the entire literature have been given in footnotes, and a chapter of the book has been given in transliteration showing the pronunciation by the Samaritans of the old text. The author states here he could faithfully say that he had spared no effort in trying to elucidate a book which, by its character, claims special attention from more than one point of view. The parallelism between Jews and Samaritans and all their mental activity to which he has referred in his Schweik lectures manifests itself here again. A Midrashic interpretation of the middle of the 3rd century points to a fixed text of the Pentateuch. It's the 5 books of Moses, right? The Jewish 5 books of Moses, which are probably, you've got the Greek Pentateuch and you've got the Jewish Pentateuch, right? Also considered as holy and immutable in word and letter. The time is not yet ripe to inquire into the primary source of these biblical legends. The author had endeavoured, however, and he believed for the first time, to lift some of them out of the narrow confines of Palestine and to join them to the wider cycles of world legends, and a new view had been advanced, among others of the origin of the Antichrist legend. Ooh, that'd be interesting. It must be left to others to continue this comparative study and to investigate the closer relations between them and the mutual influences which they may have exercised upon one another. It would be ungrateful on his part if he didn't mention in the first place the assistance which the Samaritans had tried to give him, especially the high priest Jacob, the son of Aaron, and his son Ab Ḥisda, and to a large extent Abisha, the son of Pinehas. Okay, he's probably not talking about Moses and his brother Aaron, or his associate Aaron. From time to time, one friend or another had rendered him valuable help, and he pays a special debt of gratitude to Mr. B. Bamberger, etc., etc. And last of all, to place on record his appreciation of the generosity of the Royal Asiatic Society. Probably have to fund them. which had enabled him to publish the most ancient monument, so miraculously preserved, of the Samaritan literature. Truly a brand plucked out of the fire. M. Gaster, London, June 16th, 1927. And this is a table of contents with a list of abbreviations and the Samaritan text. Character and title of the book. The best way to describe the Asatir is to call it a Midrash, Agadah, or legendary supplement to the Pentateuch. Unlike other Apocrypha, with which it has much in common, the author does not attempt to retell anew, or did not attempt to retell anew, the sacred history and to present it in a specific form and with a deliberate tendency. He was content to leave the sacred scripture as it stands, as it stood, without meddling with its narrative and without trying to readjust the events recounted therein or within it according to a certain preconceived system, either legal or astronomical, or far off, or possibly to do with astronomy. The author takes for granted the Samaritan tradition as he knows it and does not waste his ingenuity to prove its truth. The following table of contents will show the exact character of the book. Chapter 1, Division of Earth by Adam. Verse 2, Sacrifice of Cain and Abel on Mount Gerizim. Verse 6, etc., etc. Chapter 2, Seth builds Antiochia. Verse 1, Genealogies and building of towns. Verse 2, twice 12 precious stones. Verse 7, Lamech making images. Verse 10, sign of birth of Noah. Adam foretells the flood, children of Lamech and the towns built by them, etc., etc. Chapter 3, death of Adam and Badan. Noah studies the 3 books. Ahidan builds Sion, rock of shame. Chapter 4, flood, and so forth. The book is called by the Samaritans the Asatir, or as it should have been Astir. The author has translated this title, The Secret of Moses, thus translating the Samaritan word Asatir, so pronounced by the Samaritans, in order to distinguish it at once from the other books ascribed to Moses, such as the Apocalypse or the Assumption of Moses. The Samaritans themselves no longer understand the title and were unable to enlighten him in spite of frequent questioning. But they at the same time emphatically repudiate the notion that the title may be of Arabic origin. The word is one which has not been taken by them into their language. It occurs neither in the liturgical poems or liturgical poems, nor in any other book which the author was acquainted. Although they are quite familiar with the Hebrew parallel form, and there it is there, from the passage in the Bible, Deuteronomy 31:18, to which they attach overwhelming importance. The fulfillment of the threat expressed by that sentence in the Bible marks, according to them, the starting point of the Fanuta, the hiding of God's presence. The Hebrew word has not been retained in its Hebrew form even in the Samaritan Targum to that passage, but in the case of the present book, they have evidently retained the old name. The book is called by the Samaritans the Asatir, or as it should have been Astir. The author had translated this title, The Secrets of Moses, thus translating the Samaritan word Asatir, so pronounced by the Samaritans, in order to distinguish it at once from the other books ascribed to Take 3. The book is called by the Samaritans the Astir, or as it should have been Astir. The author had translated this title, The Secret of Moses, thus translating the Samaritan word Astir, so pronounced by the Samaritans, in order to distinguish it at once from the other books ascribed to Moses, such as the Apocalypse or the Assumption of Moses. The Samaritans themselves no longer understand the title and were unable to enlighten him in spite of frequent questioning. But they at the same time, emphatically repudiate the notion that the title. Okay. Take 3. We had to do a part 2 because our wireless keyboard fell on our foot. The book is called by the Samaritans the Asatir, or as it should have been Astir. The author had translated this title, The Secret of Moses, thus translating the Samaritan word Asatir. Jeez. Take 4. The book is called by the Samaritans the Asatir, or as it should have been, Astir. The author had translated this title, The Secret of Moses, thus translating the Samaritan word Asatir, so pronounced by the Samaritans, in order to distinguish it at once from the other books ascribed to Moses, such as the Apocalypse or the Assumption of Moses. The Samaritans themselves no longer understand the title and were unable to enlighten him in spite of frequent questioning, but they at the same time emphatically repudiated the notion that the title may have been of Arabic origin. The word is one which has not been taken by them into their language. It occurs neither in their liturgical poems nor in any other book with which the author was acquainted, although they are quite familiar with the Hebrew parallel form. And here it is here, from the passage. In the Bible, Deuteronomy 31:18, to which they attach overwhelming importance. The fulfillment of the threat expressed by that sentence in the Bible marks, according to them, the starting point of the Fanuta, the hiding of God's presence. The Hebrew word has not been retained in its Hebrew form even in the Samaritan Targum to that passage, but in the case of the present book, this particular book, they have evidently retained the very old name, the true meaning of which they have since forgotten. It is unquestionably the primitive Hebrew name for that literature which has since become known under the two Greek names of Apocryphon and Apocalypse, both meaning something hidden or something revealed in a secret form. A narrower meaning has been attached to the word Apocryphon, inasmuch as it has been given to a set of books not received in what is called the canon of the Jewish Bible. Without entering upon any discussion as to the meaning of the canon of the Jewish Bible, whatever may be understood by it, it is clear that it cannot be applied to any Samaritan writing, since the Samaritans have only the Pentateuch, and outside this the book of Joshua and some fragments of Judges and Samuel. These latter are treated by them as profane history. The use of the title Apocryphon therefore would have been misleading, and as for Apocalypse, it could only be applied to the last 2 chapters, which deal with prophecies connected with the very last hours of Moses upon earth. The author has, therefore, as mentioned before, chosen the title The Secret of Moses in preference to any other, for it agrees much more closely with the character of this book. Moreover, Secreta Moisi, or Moise, Secrets of Moses, appears as a title in one of the old list of books excluded from the canon by the Church. See Charles, The Assumption of Moses, London, 1897, page 15. It is not unimportant to mention that in the Hebrew literature a book has been preserved to which references will be made later on page 52, under the title of The Secrets or Mysteries of Rabbi Simeon ben Yochai. It is a real apocalypse and contains prophecies concerning the end of time and various events connected therewith. That again would be interesting to compare it with the original ancient Galilean Aramaic Revelation and the Apocalypse, etc., of the events that supposedly happened. With this secret or mysteries of Rabbi Simeon ben Yochai in the overall Apocalypse. The Hebrew name of it is Nistarot, which is precisely of the same root as the Samaritan form of Asatir. From the contents and from the fact that it is ascribed to Moses, the book might be described as pseudepigraphic. Okay, so the contents supposedly are ascribed to Moses. The Jews actually admit, we read that they attribute it to Moses. They admit that he didn't actually write those books. He may not have written them, but the set tradition to put a name to a scroll, to a writing, to a book. So they attributed it to Moses. Because how can Moses write about his own death when he's dead? Think about it. True, it is nowhere in the text expressly stated that Moses wrote it. Here you go. But his authorship is assumed by the title, and by the tradition still alive among the Samaritans. It's the same thing as the Jews, right? Although in quoting the book, as well as we've seen later on page 137, 140, the various Samaritan writers quote only the master of the Asatir, or the author of the Asatir, al-Asāṭīr. They leave it undecided as to whether Moses actually wrote it, or whether it is a tradition handed down from Moses. Thus the Asatir belongs to the large number of pseudepigraphic writings ascribed or attributed to Moses. It differs completely, however, from the others, inasmuch as it is the only one that starts from Adam and finishes with the death of Moses. It thus covers the whole of the Pentateuch. The Book of Jubilees carries its story from creation to the Exodus. The so-called Apocalypse of Moses is in reality an Adam book. It contains only the story of the going out of paradise by Adam and Eve, the various incidents connected with the first man, the first human being that had that connection with God, was filled with the Ruach HaKodesh, etc. It's not talking about a pre-Adamic man. And closes with the death of Adam and Eve. Another is the Asaṭīr, or rather the Testament of Moses, which is limited exclusively to the last days of Moses and closes with a prophecy. The reason why an Adam book should have been called the Apocalypse of Moses has hitherto remained obscure, as no reference to Moses is found in any of the texts, neither in the Greek, Latin, Slavonic, Arabic, nor Ethiopian or Coptic, nor even in the Syriac Cave of Treasures. It's a lost book, isn't it? Yeah, it's like the Cave of Treasures, Adam and Eve, the Lost Gospel, Part 1, Part 2, which already goes beyond the more limited scope of the others. In the light of the Asatir, this difficulty is now removed, since it explains the reason for that title, as the text here begins with the history of Adam and Eve and finishes with the death of Moses. The Apocalypse may therefore have originally belonged to a similar full compilation. In fact, the Apocalypse agrees in the main with the first chapters of our book ascribed to Moses. Compare page 115. From this, the Apocalypse has then been detached, but retained the old title of the whole book. The Asatir then is accepted by the Samaritans as a book of Moses. Although those who made copies for the author from the older original manuscripts differ among themselves in the wording of the title, still they are unanimous in ascribing to it to our master Moses, or attributing it to him. So it appears also in the Arabic paraphrase and in the Pitron commentary. Moreover, to the questions which the author put to the Samaritans, he received the unequivocal reply that, of course, the book was written by Moses, and although it did not enjoy the same authority as the law, or the Torah, none the less the facts which were related in the book were all true and reliable. The old tradition that has thus been preserved unaltered down to our very days. One must realize that the name of an author was not considered to be of such a determining value as it is in modern times. Hence the reason why the same book was at one time ascribed to one author and at other times to another author. Take for example the very same Apocalypse being ascribed or attributed in turns to St. Paul, St. Peter, or the Lady Mary, the Virgin Mary. Right? Most of the apocryphal writings are practically anonymous, quite indifferent to the names which were from time to time attached to them. They are popular literature in the widest sense of the word, and have been treated as such. Originally, neither the Jews nor the Samaritans would have inquired too closely about the authenticity of such legendary writings ascribed to the one or the other of the patriarchs. And it continues, and it continues. Okay. There's quite a lot there. Sibylline oracles, Upolemos, in other Hellenistic or Hellene. This is prior to the Hellenes becoming the Greeks. Okay, and it goes on for another number of pages. It's free online, so we can leave a link to it at the bottom of this video. The Tower of Babel was built by people who rebelled against God and was cast down by the winds. Then evidently the surviving king has 3 children, and in the 10th generation from the deluge or the flood, anachronistically, the whole earth is divided into 3 portions, among them upon oath of mutual peace. After the death of the father, Titan rises up and fights his eldest brother, and this is the beginning of war in the world. but peace is established on the condition that all the male children of Kronos are destroyed and they are accordingly torn by the giants. Okay, is that Greek? Is that Greek version of it? Because Kronos, etc. sounds very Greek. But one male child escapes and is hidden, and afterwards overthrows Titan. Then arises the kingdom of Egypt, and 7 kingdoms are mentioned. We have now only to introduce the equation, Titan, Nimrod, to assist us in solving the problem, as to whence the Sibyl has drawn her information as well as the sequence of events. For if we follow also the identification of older writers, we see in this the development of a legend whose central figure is Nimrod. For as indicated above, we have here unquestionably the story of Nimrod, which has been greatly developed and to which many incidents have been added, not found directly in the Bible, but probably deduced from it by that specific midrashic exegesis which interprets its names and words in a manner of its own. It is well known that one single word of the Bible is often sufficient to become the starting point for a whole series of legends. This midrashic exegesis connects the name of Nimrod with the word marad, to rebel, and this was sufficient to spin it out into a long story of Nimrod, who was rebellious against God. The fact that he is mentioned as king of Babylon is, for the author of the legend, sufficient proof that he must have usurped his power, especially when taken in connection with the history of Noah and 3 sons. Of these, Shem is the one appointed king by Noah, and yet we find Nimrod as the first king. Here is again sufficient reason for legendary activity to develop Nimrod's kingship into usurpation or fight. Moses of Chorin does not fail to recognize that the 3 sons between whom the power is divided, for example Zeroan, Titan and Japhetos, are none other than Shem, Ham and Japheth. Langlois 259, page 59. The fact that Nimrod is mentioned as Gibor gives him preeminence in the eyes of the maker of legends. Why should he be called Gibor, and what is the real meaning of that word? In the LXX or Septuagint to Genesis 10:17:4, 10:8:9, we already find the midrashic interpretation. The word is there translated as giant. According to Samaritan tradition, Gibor is also the word used regularly for giant. The word is at once connected with the Giborium, Genesis 6:4, a further corroboration for that interpretation of the word Gibor as meaning giant, inasmuch as the Giborium here mentioned are also translated giants, as well as the word Nephilim in the same verse. So deeply rooted had become the conviction that the builders of the tower were giants, that not only was the translation of the word Gibor as giant found in the LXX or Septuagint, as well as being taken over by the Peshitta, that's the Western Peshitta, right? When it's probably like the west of Syria or something like that, not the one we're thinking of, the one where the American missionaries came in and tried to translate the King James Version into the Syriac, and maybe that became the Peshitta. We're not too sure on that one. It's not really liked by a lot of translators. Andrew Gabriel Roth, possibly Victor N. Alexander, and a couple of other ones. Okay. They say it's wrong. It's a bad translation or something like that. Okay. Gibor as giant found in the LXX or Septuagint, as well as being taken over by the Peshitta and even the Arabic translation of that. But Philo also accepted it without hesitation and based upon it his own philosophic explanations and discourses in his questions 282 to Genesis 10:8. That he not only takes it for granted that Nimrod was a giant, possibly meaning that he was powerful, he was great, he was renowned, right? He was famous, but practically identifies him with Titan and refers to the war of the Titans with the gods, a parallel evidently to the rebellious action of Nimrod against God and echoed by the Sibyl. Thus, this he further develops in the special treatise upon the giants. Not too sure what that symbol is. It's got 14 next to it. Here in his reference to Nimrod, he says this man was a giant upon the earth, the name Nimrod being interpreted desertion, rebellious. This tradition has been handed down to the writers of the Middle Ages, where Nimrod is always described as a giant. It must be mentioned that the Samaritan tradition knows nothing of the fall of angels, nor of their marrying the daughters of men. The Bnei Elohim are to them the sons of the mighty and the children of the all-powerful giants. Probably from that too close relationship, being cousins or offspring or something like that, whatever. The DNA, right? Genetics. They can produce these giants. They're probably just like 6 foot tall or something, 7 foot tall, taller than these other ones who are like about 4 or 5 foot. They look up at them and think, oh, they're giants, because they're so damn tall. Some of them might have been 10 feet, 13 feet or more. Don't know about 100 foot or 400 foot or anything like that. The Bnei Elohim are to them the sons of the mighty and the children of the all-powerful giants. Among the Hellenistic, that's Greek writers, from whom the Sibyl may have drawn some information, there is a certain Pseudo-Eupolemos, a writer whom Freudenthal, Hellenic Study, page 82 FF, has rightly separated from the other fragments ascribed to the genuine Eupolemos, both quoted under one name by Alexander Polyhista and hence by Eusebius in his Preparatio Evangelica. Freudenthal has proved beyond doubt that the author of these fragments must have been a Samaritan, and he assigned them to him the date around 200 BC. It will be seen later on that Freudenthal's conjecture is fully corroborated by the author's investigation, and so forth. Okay, and this person Eupolemos says that in the 10th generation in the city of Babylon, Kamarina, i.e. furnace, Pseudo-Eupolemos knows therefore the interpretation of the Hebrew word wasn't that Chaldean? Or Chaldee? Oh, okay, maybe, yeah, okay, yeah, okay, we got it. As furnace thus being the starting point of the legion of Abraham, and furnace at the same time he goes on to say that is the name of the town. True syncretism. We read earlier it was like meant city. A specific city of Chaldee. It had something else attached to it, but we can't remember for the life of us what it actually said now. We've lost it. Camarina, i.e. furnace. Pseudo-Eupolemos knows therefore the interpretation of the Hebrew word as furnace, thus being the starting point of the legion of Abraham, and the furnace at the same time he goes on to say that is the name of the town. True syncretism. Interpreted means Mount of the Most High. By calling do we jump a page or something? Just check that one. Okay, so who is this? Abraham must be looks like Abraham was entertained with sacred honours by the city of Agarazin, which interpreted means mountain of the Most High. And down below is a footnote. By calling Agarizin the mountain of the Most High, Pseudo-Eupolemos gives decisive proof for his Samaritan origin. They received gifts at the hands of Melchizedek, who was a priest of the god and also king. And we now have all the elements required for the reconstruction of the legend as it appears in the Asatir and in the Sibyl. We have then only to identify Saturnus with Noah and Kronos with Shem. This is probably the Greek god, to see exactly how the story resting upon the biblical record could assume a Greek form without altering it in substance. Josephus, whose close relation to the Asatir will be discussed later on, has also worked up the subject more completely. According to him, Nimrod is not only the rebellious king, but he and his associates are the builders of the tower, for he induces and forces the people to build the tower and thus to defy God. He's talking about Nimrod. 1:4-2:13. Okay, so there's quite a lot of information here. Could probably match it with the biblical story, the scriptures. Okay, going back to the comment, looking at it one more time. Okay, what did he say? 8, page 262. Okay, 31. We might see if what's on 262. Aha, okay. Chapter 8, Birth of Moses. And after the death of Abraham, Ishmael reigned 27 years, and all the children of Nebaal ruled for 1 year in the lifetime of Ishmael, and for 30 years after his death, from the river Egypt to the river Euphrates, and they built Mecca. Okay, here in this comment, okay, yeah, pretty much he said that. I guess it's in Josephus, but the Red Sea, the Sea of Reeds. Yeah, okay, so he's pretty much giving us the right information there. They built the city of Mecca, the descendants of Ishmael. For thus it is said, as thou goest towards Ashur, that's the land of the Ashurites, before all his brethren he lay. Elias, is that Elias? Eliphaz, the son of Esau, fought with the children of Ishmael, and they produced there Israel and the king of Arad, and he captured captivity from them. So look, check that, we didn't skip a page. Yeah, Eliphaz, the son of Esau, fought with the children of Ishmael, and they produced there Israel and the king of Arad, and he captured captivity from them. And they, the children of Israel, returned a second time and waged war with him, and they banned him and everything that belonged to him, so he was ousted. He couldn't remain there. Chapter 10, Balaam. What's this? Okay, so the comment was correct. Thank you for that, for indicating that to us, making us interested in this book, well, allowing us to get interested in this book. It's very interesting, a lot of information there. What's this about the Muhammad? Seven. The Samaritans pronounce Fari Edom, which pronunciation the author has retained, and in conversation they call it the Mohammedans. They call the Mohammedans by this name, meaning that there by kinsmen of Edom. So he's saying here that the Mohammedans, being the Fari Edom, called by that name, means therefore they are kinsmen of Edom. So they are the descendants they're the peoples of Edom. Esau was Edom. Malif Q 117 reads Farah Ha'am Damar, the wild man of the earth, or rather ruthless warrior who lives upon a sword. And what's this? 21. And Pharaoh came to Egypt in the first year, and he dwelt there, he kept Egypt by force. And footnote here says the text here is somewhat confused. Evidently reference is made to some wars of Pharaoh, or the king of Egypt, with other nations. Jubilees, is that 65? Not too hot on the Roman numerals, not too sure what that is. 9 contains a description of such wars of Pharaoh, the king, Egyptian king, with the Canaanites. And so forth. So we hope that you found this book interesting, the Asatir. We are finding it very interesting. And okay, it's going on about the birth of Moses. And that's probably why he did what he did and he fled. Because here it says, a man of the house of Levi went, mighty as the tree from which Moses was plucked. And the wizard saw in his enchantment that Israel's star was in the ascendant, and he saw that the mother was pregnant with him. So he said to the king, thy intention has now been frustrated. Pharaoh said to him, what shall be done? And the wizard replied, his death will be through water. And Pharaoh commanded the Egyptians, saying, no Hebrew male child shall be left. Slight twist on that Exodus tale. Okay, chapter 9, Moses, and the great prophet, may he be remembered for good forever, was born in the month of Nisan, on the 5th of it, on the Sabbath. Chapter 9, birth of Moses, 7th hour, 7th day, Sabbath, 7th month, Nisan. Poem by Abdallah bin Salma, Kali, page 747. The story of Moses, etc. Meal 43. Cedar Hadorot, page 77, born on Wednesday, 7th Adar, 3rd hour of the day. Other dates are also given there, among them that he was born on the Sabbath. Josephus Antiquities 11:9, 3:21:16. His memory will last forever. The very same words, Sanhedrin 101b. A new twist on, or an old twist on the Moses story, birth story, etc.
Okay, there's plenty more interesting data there. We'll leave it at that, and we'll put the link to it under this video so you can go read it for yourself. It's very, very interesting. We are thanking that particular commentator for giving us that very nice, mature message, and for giving us the inspiration to go check that book out. We'll read further. Thank you for that. You are much appreciated. Blessings upon you. Peace be with you. Peace be upon you, etc. In regards to giving us this great comment, you are much appreciated. So, as we said, subscribe to our channel. Hopefully you did. Subscribe to our channel. Give us a like. Add your comments below in the comment section. We'll get back to you on those as soon as we can. As soon as possible. And then go share this particular video about the Samaritan Book of Asatir, or Astir, or the Samaritan Book of the Secret of Moses by Moses Gaster, 1927. Brilliant book. We enjoyed it. We really liked it. We want to read it again because there's some little details that can help us better understand from that the scriptures from that Samaritan perspective. Okay. Enjoy the rest of your day, your night, your morning. Be blessed. Be blessed.